Down Under Dynasty. I'm your host, Ben Dubin, up from the pin. And me as usual, my co-host, FF Doormat. Matt Hatton, how are you today, Matt?
Good, Benny. How you doing, mate? I'm going well. Out of lockdown, semi out of lockdown anyway. I think you won't be far behind us, hopefully, down in Melbourne. But went out to dinner to a friend's place last night. Met some real people in the flesh. Gave them a cuddle, a bit of a handshake, and kids had a good time. It was just nice to be human again, almost. It's crazy times we're living, but hopefully it's all starting to come to an end.
Any tickling?
Always a bit of tickle, bit of tickle, bit of cuddle.
That's beautiful. And Mark Bull is here with us again. How are you, Bully?
Yeah, good, mate. Integrating back into society slowly. No, it's been good. It's been good to be back into the world this week and functioning as a human. So it's been good.
Lovely. So today I was just going to throw some questions at these gentlemen, some questions I want some opinions on. So I thought I'd throw them to two of the brightest in the business and see what they have to say. So let's jump right into it.
When are those guys joining the pod?
I don't know. I keep looking in the lobby, but they're not here.
Will do, I guess.
Yeah, I guess you blokes will do. As we know, Christie McCaffrey back on injured reserve. I don't know if this is linked to the same injury or aggravation from the same injury or a new injury, but he back on the IR. He's been pretty clearly the Dynasty RB1, even after missing all the last season. But another year older, another year of injuries. So knowing that situation, and I think, is he turning 25 next year or 26?
I think he's 26 next season. Yeah, he's 25 now.
Is he? Okay.
Yeah, he's 25 now.
So knowing that, guys, who is your Dynasty RB1?
To be honest, for me at the moment, it'd have to be between Najee Harris or DeAndre Swift. I think realistically, when I'm building teams, I only want rookie running backs. I don't think running backs on a second deal tend to produce the cost. They tend to be quite expensive if they're on their second deal to trade for and acquire. Whereas your rookie running backs in that rookie draft are the way to go. And realistically, they're the only two that are getting the volume and are young enough to be in that conversation. I mean, Jonathan Taylor, if he sorts out what's going on over there, he's certainly got an opinion. But to be honest, at the moment, Najee getting 25 touches a game, he's in the same touch count as Derrick Henry, and volume is key for him.
Matt, who's your running back one? You're doing a startup, right, next year. Who's the running back you're taking? Who should be the first running back on the ball off the board in your opinion?
Whoever costs the least, really. It's all the same. Now that Barkley's getting older, CMC's going down. Probably, there's not a standard, is there? It's a bit of a tough one for me. I'd probably go JT. I still love Jonathan Taylor. I hope he has a strong finish to the season. I think he started slow last year. Hopefully he finishes strong this year. But yeah, he's getting all the touches robbed from him. I think Nelson's still on IR. Right? Quentin Nelson's still on IR. So if he comes back, maybe his run game steps up again. But yeah, not really feeling good about it. Maybe DeAndre Swift again. He's always on that questionable injured list, isn't he? I think he might be playing a bit banged up. If he can stay healthy, it might actually be Swift. But I don't know. Even Najee, terrible O-line, whatnot, but he's getting those touches. He's getting that volume. He's probably going to continue getting it now. Juju's out, right? He's going to get a lot of those little dump offs and short balls, and who knows if they improve that O-line, how his situation might change next year. But probably whoever can get the cheapest is who I'd want. It's all the same, really. You know,
it's not about the cheapest though. It's who's the RB1. Right, you could pick from any RB. Right, who are you taking? Just say it was. Let's pretend for a moment that we're playing single quarterback, and you've got the 101 in a startup draft. Who are you taking?
Yeah, I'm taking Taylor, Jonathan Taylor.
Bully, same question. Who are you taking?
101, I'm not taking a running back. We'll put it that way. But if I have to take a running back, then I'm taking Najee.
Look, I agree with you on talent on Swift and Najee. I think based off what they're doing right now, I'd say they'd probably be the players that I'd lean towards. But the quarterback situation for both teams being so unsettling makes me nervous to take either of those guys.
I initially was that way inclined, and I think a few weeks ago on the pod I spoke about being concerned about Big Ben and that line, but you know, Najee's putting up RB top 5 and 6 RB, weeks every week at the moment. And to be perfectly honest, that line can't get much worse, and the quarterback situation can't get much worse. So, you've got a guy, if he plays like this, he's got 4 more years in Pittsburgh at minimum. The coaching situation there is fairly secure. I can't see Tomlin going anywhere, even if he has a bad year this year. He's secure. He likes a workhorse running back. That's been his way of doing things. And for my way, you know what? If I can get 4 more years, even if, Big Ben isn't the quarterback next year, whoever they get isn't going to be much worse. Like, I just think I would lean Najee for that, just because if you look at Swift, he's got concerns about the coaching staff. He's got concerns about the line. He's got concerns about the quarterback. He's got concerns about the receivers.
I think Detroit's line's pretty good. My concern with Swift is that right now he's doing it off catches, right? Not running the ball. And what happens when that offense gets more weapons, as surely they have to do, right? Is he going to ever be a full-time bell cow, 15, 20 carry a game running back? I don't know.
Yeah.
Who's your RB1, Benny?
Well, but before I unveil my RB1, all right, are any of the old guard in consideration for you? So the C-Max, the Dalvins, the Kamaras?
Nah.
They've
all got enough concerns. Like, Kamara will have his big games, but he's not the same player he was 2 years ago with Breeze. Cook is constantly banged up. Like, CMC is now banged up. I think Saquon all of a sudden has not, the same consistent player he was coming out, avoiding injuries and that. I mean,
Saquon's always been feast or famine, though, right? He's making big plays, and then he gets back behind the line. He's dancing and stuff.
Yeah,
which I don't know. I think it's a strange way of playing for a bigger back.
I think realistically, for me, to be perfectly honest, if I have to take a running back that isn't on their rookie deal, so take out Swift, Gibson, Taylor, Najee, all of that, I'd almost be taking Elliott over all of them. Like, CMC's starting to be banged up, and that was the concern when he came into the league. How would he handle the workload given his size? And yes, he got bigger, and yes, for a few years he did, but I'd almost be making the argument that Ezekiel Elliott's the back to own of those non-rookie running backs. He isn't banged up.
Yeah, but that's not the question, right?
Yeah.
Like that's not the question. Is who is you taking as your RB1?
Yeah.
And look, I have to agree with at FF Doormat and say it's Jonathan Taylor.
Great minds think alike. If you're going to take anyone of those older running backs, I think the disrespect for Derrick Henry is just we're all ages, I guess, but he keeps producing, right? He's doesn't miss time. He's got that opportunity, and he's just he's going to finish probably as the RB1 this year again, right? So we're all waiting for that cliff to come.
I don't know if he's going to finish as the RB1 in PPR leagues.
Oh, he's well ahead of anyone at the moment.
I think they'll catch him. For me, out of that old guard, if I was to take somebody, it'd probably be Kamara. He stayed healthy. He catches a lot of passes. I could see him having like a fadeaway, and still being a high-end RB2 for another few years, right? If you're a big-time contender. So he's the guy I'd be looking at. After 2 years of McCaffrey just getting banged up, I don't have the faith there. But like Jonathan Taylor is on track to catch 45 passes, and he's averaging 14 yards per reception, which is ridiculous. Like if you knew like prior to this season, if you knew Jonathan Taylor was going to catch 45 to 50 balls, he'd be the smash the table RB1, right?
Yep.
So. Yeah, I think he's clearly the RB1. I got no shares. Anyway, you heard it first. Well, not he first. I'm sure lots of people have been saying it. The Taylor RB1. He's still really young too, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he's 22.
Young, yeah.
He's only 22. Yeah, like I'd easily take him over Najee.
Well, Jonathan Taylor's on track for, what'd you say, 45 receptions.
Yeah, Najee's on track for 90 receptions. Yeah, I know. I just feel better about the situation on the Colts than I do on the Steelers. That's all. It's just the situation.
For me, Najee falls into the same reason that I have Terry McLaurin a lot higher than a lot of people. And it's that situation of he's managed to do it. Like, if Najee's managing to do it in this situation where it can really only get better, they've got a heap of receivers, so we don't have to worry about them adding weapons. The line is poor, the quarterback play is poor, and he's still doing it.
We always say, can it get worse? And generally it can get worse because they could draft a quarterback and he could suck. Like, it could be terrible, but then they may trot him out there for 3 years anyway to see if he develops. So it could definitely get worse. Taylor, Wentz looked really, really good last week. Called it. Wentz, top 12 quarterback, rest of the way. Anyway, let's move on to the next question I have for you, gentlemen. Who is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers wide receiver 1? And who is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers wide receiver that you want A, the rest of the season, B, in Dynasty? Doormat. Shoot.
For me, it's whoever costs less, which is probably Antonio Brown, right? Just because of his age. I think he's still going to produce for a few years. So from a Dynasty perspective, you're not really going to you can invest in him and he'll die on your roster and you'll be happy as long as he has no more brain explosions. But it's going to be like this week in and week out. One week someone's going to, blow up, and then the next week it's going to be someone else, and it's just going to be sporadic. So I don't think I'm not buying it. There is an out-and-out wide receiver 1. I think that people were pushing out a few weeks ago, and then Evans had a couple of big games. It was Antonio Brown. It just could be anyone. I think Godwin's off contract right next year, so who knows what happens there. But for me,
Godwin's a free agent.
Yeah, Godwin's a free agent. So whoever costs less, which is probably going to be Antonio Brown.
Bully. And he's the one you want for Dynasty too, Matt?
Yeah, for Dynasty, I want him to. He's going to cost me less. You're not really going to lose a lot of value, and he's going to produce. I think he's got a few good years left in him. If Tom can stay there for maybe another year, maybe you get another year out of Brown as a fringe RB1, fringe wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, maybe.
Bully, sorry, mate.
For me, it's Mike Evans, and it's not even close. The dude has done it year in, year out. There's not the concerns that you've got with AB. And, I just can't see any reason why to fade what he's done for the last 7 years now. He's 28, so yes, he's getting a little bit older. You can buy back a couple of years with Godwin, but, I just don't see the value in taking a player that, might not be there next year. I just think Mike Evans is criminally underrated throughout his career, and he's an easy decision there. I can certainly see the scenario that if you're trying to buy into that offense, that AB might be the one to buy just because he could be a little bit cheaper. But I think any of those players
you think only a little bit. I mean, what do you like? It would still take a first for Mike Evans. I think you could still get AB off a second unless that team was a contender.
See, I think anyone who owns AB now is a contender. So I think the problem's going to be that you're going to have to pay for AB. And, as long as AB is linked to Brady, people are thinking Brady, like Brady came out the other day and said, I think he thinks he could play until 55. It's like, shit. So for me, it's just a matter of Mike Evans. He's not that much more expensive. I think Brown might be a little bit cheaper, but realistically, I think Godwin's coming off the board at ADP at wide receiver 16, and Evans is coming off the board at 25, and Godwin's a little bit cheaper, but there's not the track record to go with. And if I know I can still get 2 to 3 years of good production out of Evans, then I'm happy with that.
Oh, look, I would disagree in saying Godwin doesn't have a track record. He's had 120 catch season, would have got 1,000 yards last year if he wasn't hurt, probably, and is on track to have another good year this year. At wide receiver 16 for Godwin, if I could get him in at that mid wide receiver 2, back end wide receiver 2 price range, I'm probably buying Godwin. I don't think he'll be on the Bucks next year. I think he'll be somebody's big fancy free agent signing as a wide receiver, and he'll go into that offense as the wide receiver 1 for that team. The contract restructures that Mike Evans has done, I think that kind of locks him into staying at Tampa Bay, right? Because of the contract restructures, I think it's difficult for them to move on from him even if they wanted to, which I don't think they do based off what they've done around his contract. And Antonio Brown, unfortunately for him, no matter what he does or how he produces, he's just not going to be that expensive anymore, right? And he's obviously got a special relationship with Brady, and another team might not even want to take a chance on him in the locker room, even though he's playing this well.
Yeah.
So I'm going to project that Godwin moves on, and if Godwin moves on, I want him the most out of these 3. And I think he will move on. And if
giving you a couple of the receivers that are around him, just to rattle them off, would you Cup or Godwin?
Godwin.
Cooper or Godwin?
Coop. Amari.
Yep.
Godwin.
Devonta Smith or Godwin?
That's the hardest one. I'm going to say Godwin.
If you rebuild
Deebo Samuel or Godwin?
Ooh.
Probably Deebo this year, right?
Probably Deebo.
Mike Williams or Godwin?
Godwin.
Definitely Godwin, definitely.
T. Higgins or Godwin?
Ooh. Why you hurt me for? That's hard, man. That's hard. 6-1, half dozen the other. I'd probably look. I'm probably T. Higgins.
I'd probably say Godwin, but it's close.
It's
This
close.
probably
It's
goes-
really close.
It probably goes back to our conversation from last week because you 5 spots later than Godwin, you're getting Deontay Johnson. 6 spots later, you're getting Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah, I mean, we all know know wide receivers deep. I get that. We've seen Godwin have that high end wide receiver 1 season, right, where he finishes as a top 4 or 5 finisher at the position. I think that he can do that again.
Yeah,
if
he's only
gets in the
25
right team.
too, right?
Yeah, he's
only 25.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, Dynasty trade calculators, Godwin's 24.6, so he's equivalent to an early first. Mike Evans 19.2, so a bit cheaper. Antonio Brown 4.1. So obviously that's just a rough guide. If you can find someone who's 4-0 with Brown on their bench, obviously they're going to be looking to get them off, right? So,
but
yeah,
if Godwin did move on, I would want Brown over Evans because if it's Brown and Evans as the main receivers, I think AB's got that kind of 100 catch ceiling again if Godwin isn't there, whereas Mike Evans isn't going to have that. Right? AB right now doesn't look any less of the wide receiver that we saw in Pittsburgh. It's a crowded room. So
he looks great, and I think Evans is still going to draw a lot of that. That's,
Evans is just going to keep
coverage, right?
Evans is going to keep popping out. He's 80 catches, 1,200 yard, double-digit touchdown seasons, probably till he's 33 or 34.
Yeah,
and like that if there was no Godwin there, that'd be pretty side by side for me. It's just I think AB will if there was no Godwin would give you that week in week out production, whereas Evans is going to give you those 1 catch for 15-yard games, and then the next game he's going to give you 6 catches for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns. So it just depends on those two how you like to build your rosters, right?
Yeah.
And then factoring in that Evans is obviously quite a few years younger. All right. Any other anything else on this one before we move on?
I think
just another situation. You got Gronk coming back too, right? That's another mouth to feed.
Yeah.
That Brady sort of love to. So you got to figure that into the puzzle as well.
And now you're hearing Brady thinks he can play till he's 55.
Yeah. Well, I think he said Giselle won't let him, right? So what it's like. Happy wife, happy life. So
happy wife, happy life. So, and the next question here: who is the player you were nonchalant about? You weren't chasing them in the off season. If they fell to you at cost, or even you took them, right? Player you were nonchalant about, who now you're like, I want this guy. You're all in. You want to get him on your fantasy teams. I'll start with Bull this time.
Probably Ezekiel Elliott, to be honest. My strategy usually every off season is to unload all my running backs and then try and reacquire them based on how my team goes at the start of the season, just because I don't really want to be holding the bag on James Robinson when, Urban Meyer decides to spend a first-round pick on Etienne. So I tend to try and unload a lot of my running backs. And Elliott wasn't one that I wanted to go up and get. He wasn't one that I wanted to sit back and wait, But he's one that now I've seen him go for it. I'm selling the house to get him.
Well, Matt?
Just sell the unit. You don't have to sell the house to get Elliott anymore, Bully. Look, for me, I just look. There's no one that really out and out stood out. I just probably it's Lamar Jackson, just because of what he's done now with his arm. I always thought he's still going to be a QB1, but now I think his ceiling is just gotten even higher. Right, he started to win with his arm instead of his legs. He's got Bateman coming back. So yeah, I wasn't really fading him, but I wasn't buying him. I think his cost to buy hadn't really changed. But yeah, he's probably surprised me a little bit, just because he started throwing. I think he's got the franchise record for the most yards already, right? Just in that last game. So for me, it was either him or Hollywood Brown, but probably just Lamar, because we always had in the back of our minds, not that he couldn't throw, but just that if it came down to it, he'd probably win it with his legs. But to see him, take that extra step when I thought maybe defenses might not figure him out, but just might limit his ceiling a little bit, I think that hasn't happened. He's just gone to that other level. So hopefully he can sustain that for the rest of the year. And
is he someone you're really going out and buying though? Because it'd be really expensive right now.
Yeah, I think he is a buy high candidate for mine. I don't know that really breaking the bank for him, but I struggle with this one. I don't know. No one's really left out the page. Maybe if you want to buy someone, it's Hollywood Brown. The other Brown, I think he looked great. He's still a little bit under the radar.
Is he going to get the targets though? Like when Bateman comes in that offense?
I think it helps him. I think it draws some coverage off him. I think that sort of is the end of Watkins maybe.
I think it's probably the end of Watkins if Bateman shows anything. At least is anything but a third wide receiver.
Yeah,
but he's still only getting 7. It's not like he's getting double-digit targets at the moment, right? He's getting like 7 to 8 targets a game. And if Bateman cuts into that, and Andrews cuts into that, and then Dobbins comes back next year, I mean, I love Hollywood. I just don't know if this type, like the production we saw last week, is. I mean, Lamar had to throw for 400 yards for him to have that kind of game, right? And Lamar had to attempt a lot of passes. He's not going to attempt that many passes week in, week out. Though I still think, and I called it, that Lamar would set a career high with pass attempts this year. And I think that the last 2 weeks puts him firmly on track to do that. But
I think we both took the overs there, Benny. But yeah, he's drawn 6, 10, 7, 5, and 10 targets. Obviously, it just depends on whether that passing volume continues.
He's still not on track to go over the line I gave you.
500. What's he on track? Let's have a look. He's projected for 534 attempts based off the start of the season.
Yeah. I just think there's 2 games in there that are the complete career outliers. And I can't see him continuing to have games like that.
Rich is in the room. Rich is the guy that he's all in on. DJ Moore. It can't be DJ Moore for me, Rich, because I was already in on DJ Moore. I actually traded Lamar recently in a league that you commish, Mr. Hatton. I mean, we're supposed to commission together, but you do all the work.
But I lost track of who you traded. You traded so many people. I think I stopped looking after you. You bought Hawk, and 3 seconds later you traded him.
Yeah, that was a pretty intense evening of trading. My team was cactus in that league, right? It's a pretty crap team. I don't know what I just did not. I went all in to win the startup in year 1. It didn't work out, and just no depth. Only a few. There was a real studs and scrubs approach to a roster. It was an auction startup. So I traded Lamar, and I think based off his latest game, people probably say that I undersold, but I traded Lamar for Trey Lance, 2020 first rounder, 2020 second rounder. And that 2020 first and second were actually my picks that I traded. I traded those picks to Lloyd to get Tua. And those picks were going to be high because my team is not good. So, I mean, it's probably going to end up being like Trey Lance for, 101 to 103.
Yeah.
And 201 to 203, and for Lamar Jackson.
No, I like that in this class. Like, I think this class has the potential that it'll have 4 or 5 players that you want. But I think outside of that, there'll probably be some other players that will come out of the blue for the second rounders. But the value of that 101, 102 in this class, I think, is going to be a lot higher than the value of the 101, 102 in the last class, where realistically, if you've got 106, you're getting your choice of Pitts or Chase or Najee or something like that. Whereas
this league's the vinyl league, Bulls. So it's the auction.
Well, that makes it worth even more then.
So Lloyd's got the 101 and Lloyd's got the 101, the 102, and 103, right? Because he's got so much cash. If he wants to get out and buy him, he can. But yeah, you get the highest.
I had a fair bit of rookie picks after that night of trading.
You cashed up as well. Yeah,
cashed up as well, and I made sure to get I got quite a bit off him to make us a bit more even, Stevens, because I thought there's no point if I'm going to get picks, I got to get picks off him because
you want to build yours, take his down.
Yeah, and I'm pretty high on Trey Lance.
Yeah,
I just think his floor for fantasy is just so high, much like Lamar Jackson's is. So I thought I had to take the punt, I feel, to kind of rebuild that roster because it was just.
It's a good pivot. It's a good time to pivot right now. You should know. You should know by now. Maybe you've been unlucky and you've got the highest points scored in the league, but you're 2 and 3 or something. But if not, if your points scored are pretty average and you 1 and 4 or something, there's no point. Staying sideways. It's just what Bully said too. I think there's some truth to that too, right? This year, last year you had the 101, 102, 103, 104. You were sweet. But next year there's just a few of those top guys, and then there's a massive.
I pivoted to guys as well on IR. That I made a few other trades. I pivoted to guys that I was high on, who aren't really playing at the moment. Jordan Love, who I'm much higher on Jordan Love than say somebody like Mac Jones. Travis Etienne. I love Etienne so much, and was just so devastated by that injury. I've got him, but traded Hollywood Brown. Anyway, I made so many trades that night. I think we could have a whole episode on it. But I'm going to talk about a guy who I was kind of if I got him in the back end of rookie drafts, great. If I didn't, I wasn't like moving up to make sure I got him, and I don't think I ended up with a single share. But that player for me is Javonte Williams on Denver. He looks like an absolute stud. He's playing part-time at the moment. Right now he's projected for 800 rushing yards and 35 catches. If he takes that job from Melvin Gordon fully and got that kind of workload, you'd be looking at a top 6 running back. So if you can go out and buy him off a contender who took him with that back end first, but they're frustrated because they, don't really feel super safe starting him. That's a move I'd pivot to, for sure.
Yeah, and Gordon's off contract at the end of this year as well. So if you're a rebuilding team, he's certainly one to target. I
think his price is still suppressed, right? Just because he hasn't had that opportunity. You can see him on the field. He's delivering when he gets that opportunity. He's looking great, explosive, everything you want to see. bursting tackles, but his price is kept low. So if you've in a league where maybe someone's not watching games or that just maybe they're not that committed and they're just looking at stats, you're probably a chance to get him cheaply.
Yeah. And a guy I was actually out on because of his price, who I'd love to get my hands on now, is Lamar Chase. He was just going way too early for me based off where, he was going before DK. I've seen him go before DK and AJ Brown and stuff in some leagues, and I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
But, man, he looks good. But
you did it
at
for
the
Corey
same
Davis
time,
a few years ago.
Huh?
You did the same thing for Corey Davis a few years ago.
Can't be farm, boy. Can't be farm.
He's learned.
Yeah, but he just looks so good. Now his fantasy is being driven by touchdowns, right? Not so much catches and yards. Yeah.
So you offered him to me in one league, straight
Yes.
up for my wide receiver one, AJ Brown. I got Chase, took him in the rookie draft, and you offered me AJ Brown. And I think I just bought a share off you in another league, right, and told you he was my wide receiver one. So, look, I thought about it for a little bit, probably for a long bit, and I think I rejected it, and I put a comment in there that I might reject it. I might regret it next year, but just with that injury and that team spot with AJ Brown, that just sort of probably was the one thing why I didn't push the button. But he is getting treated now already in that top echelon, right? That upper. You got to pay that DK, Justin Jefferson price tag where he hasn't done it yet, really, has he? He's doing it, but hasn't done it.
Yeah, on DTC, Jamar Chase now is currently up the wide receiver 5 behind Justin Jefferson, DK Metcalf, Tyreek Hill, and CD Lamb. Like, it's a premium price you're paying, but he's also 2 years younger than anybody else on that list. So,
and he's also attached to a young quarterback, right? Which I think is a big part of the appeal. He's attached to a guy who looks like he's going to be an elite quarterback for a really long time.
Yeah.
In an offense that throws the football.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, just looking in Dynasty Underdog Listener League, he went the 4th wide receiver overall before the season started.
And look, I'm still more partial to CD Lamb than Jamar Chase. I know CD hasn't been on fire to start the season, but I'd still prefer CD. I'd still prefer DK. I'd probably still prefer AJ Brown long term, but in the league that I offered you that trade, I'm a big time contender for the ship, and I want those points now. And AJ Brown's not getting me much points at the moment, but then you're contending as well. So, yeah.
I'm not. I don't know if I'm a strong contender. I'm 5-0. I'll be in the playoffs, but maybe if it was rebuild, it might be a bit different. But I don't know. It's a tough one. I really thought about it. But, just maybe I bought into the hype.
But me in that league, me and Lloyd are like 0.4 leaders. But I'm sitting at 5th and he's sitting at 3rd, and you and Simo are undefeated.
I think you scored like 10 points more than me or something.
Yeah. Oh, you're actually right up there, man. You're actually right up there in the points for, man. I'm doing
it right.
A pretty strong team. You got a really strong team.
Good. I got Dobbins on the IR.
No,
just lost CH as well.
You're definitely a championship contender, mate. Jesus, your team's
Maybe
really good.
I think you losing that one game. I think last year you're undefeated and lost in the final, so you flipped it. So I think it's meant to be maybe this year.
Hopefully, I really want to win this league. I get a lot of shit put on me about this league, so hopefully I can win it. All right.
But it does feel good to be a poor orphan boy, to be on top of the league.
No, you're killing it. You're killing it, buddy. And Bully, how's Bully going in that league?
Which one's that?
Cracking, mate. The OG, the process at 2 and 3.
He's trusting the process still. It takes a couple of years to rebuild. Hey, it just does. You just cannot even like. I think I stacked the picks the year before, and Bully did it last year, and it just takes another year and a bit of luck to start contending, I reckon.
Yeah, I'm probably a veteran or two away. Like, I mean, I've got the picks there that if I wanted to push it in and have a run at you guys this year, I probably could. I think I've got 6 or 7 firsts over the next 2 years, or maybe 3 years. So I've got the picks that if I wanted to go and get, an Elliott or a Cook or something like that and have a run at you guys, I probably could. But I think I'm young enough there that I've got, quarterback I'm loaded. I've got Darnold, Lawrence, Lance, Wilson, Fields. Running back is where I'm shallow. I've only got Najee. But wide receiver core is coming along. McLaurin, Jefferson, Diggs. It's a 2 tight end league, and I've got Gesicki and Pitts. It's getting there. It's just a little bit away still. Yeah. If Bateman comes off IR now and does anything, maybe I run at you guys at the end. But
Bully, he's still a year away. The points for us is nowhere near, but you're solid. I'm impressed.
My points for is a little bit misleading because that first week was absolute donuts. I put up 60 points in total, but that was the week that Najee had 6, Diggs had 1, McLaurin had 1 because Fitz went down. I think Trevor Lawrence put up 3 points or something that first week. Like, it was just a clusterfuck.
Been disappointing, these rookie QBs, haven't they?
A little bit. Yeah. But we could actually, maybe they could be the answer to some of this next question. Who's the guy, who's the player you were all in on, right? You were in, you're like, this guy's going to be a star. I want him on my roster, right? And now you're out on.
From this class or any class?
Just a player in fantasy football, dynasty fantasy football.
For me, there's probably 2 that have burnt me, and that's Jalen Reagor and Bryan Edwards. Like, I'm still holding out hope with Edwards that maybe if someone other than Gruden comes in and, changes things a little bit. I think we've seen enough of Bryan Edwards to know he can do it when he sees the targets. Down the stretch of those games when, Derek Carr's needed someone, Edwards has been the guy he's gone to and he's, come up trumps. But I just haven't seen anything from Jalen Reagor. And, he was my wide receiver 1 last year, and I took him early last year, and I took him early in a lot of places, and I got burnt.
It hurts, right? You take him over guys like Lamb and Jefferson, and it stings, huh? Like, we've all been there. We've all been there.
Plenty of times.
It hurts. Right.
I stand it up with. Yeah.
I thought Reagor was going to be. I thought he was for real.
Yeah.
And
I mean, to be fair, like I think I've overreacted a little bit this year because of Reagor, and I probably didn't get as much Devonta Smith as I wanted to, just because Philly has been so incredibly bad at drafting wide receivers that it almost made me go, I'm out. Like, JJ Arcega-Whiteside looked like he was going to be something, went to Philly, 4 games. Jalen Reagor's struggled. Like, even Devonta Smith, I think in any other location is a very, very different receiver as well. Like, I think he's almost overcoming what Philly is rather than Philly making him better.
Fair enough. Well, look, I got to let everybody know that today's episode is brought to you by Primetime Sports Talk, your top source for all major sports content, including DFS, fantasy advice, and great gambling tips. Be sure to head to primetimesportstalk.com to check out their in-depth analysis exclusive articles, fascinating interviews, and explore the rest of their amazing podcast family. Again, primetimesportstalk.com, your go-to spot for sports content. And if you're listening to us, I hope you know that, well, you're obviously watching live on YouTube right now, or maybe on the Facebook page When a Family Breaks. But you can also listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Podbean, and Spotify. And if you're listening to us and you like what the boys over at Toilets to Titles do, why don't you consider joining the Patreon? Tier 1 is $3 per month and get you into the T2T team group chat. Tier 2 is $5 per month. Get you early access to our waiver wire episodes, enter into our Frankenstein League, T2T team group chat. And Tier 3 is $10 per month. One-on-one roster analysis, free entry into our Frankenstein League. Next year, T2T group chat, and early access to the waiver wire episodes. So get on it, join the Patreon, and the guys are in there. They're chatting all the time, around the clock. You can talk to Matt here, get his sexy Dynasty insights.
You you want it.
Oh, you do. You want it. It's wet and hard. Matt, who were you all in on? Who you are out on now?
Look, I try not to overreact. I try not to be knee-jerky. So don't know if I'm all out, but I'm really worried and fading. It's probably Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Zach Wilson, those two players. Still early days for Wilson, but just doesn't look pretty, does it? It's just so splashy and there's no consistency there. He's very, very young, right? He's really young.
You saw it in the Titans game, though. Some of the throws that he makes, it's just... He's got all the physical talent in the world, man.
Yeah. I think sometimes he just wants to make that massive play, and that's the undoing of him. But look, hopefully he gets that under control. I'm not battling on him yet, but I am super worried, and probably part of that is just because he's at the Jets. I still believe what they're doing. I think they're a bit underrated. Their defense looks okay, and hopefully he can get his stuff together and they start to become a winning organization again. But I'm really worried about him, and I was sort of pretty high on him earlier in the season. And the other one's just Edwards-Helaire. I think I had him as my RB8 this year. Just hasn't happened. I can't make excuses for him anymore. He's on the IR now, so maybe he comes out of that and gets better. But experience tells us that doesn't really happen. Like guys that come off IR don't suddenly break out.
We were just talking last week. We were just talking last week as well how we thought he might have turned the corner, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And now he gets hurt, and yeah.
Yeah.
Now
for me,
Darrell Williams does.
Yeah, for me, Wilson, I'm still in on, and I'm still in on because I think I'm holding out hope that at some point that organization can sort its shit out. Like they drafted Sam Darnold, and he was incredibly young as well. I think he was 20 when he came into the league. And he struggled through there and had, he's got free, and now he looks like a superstar quarterback. And so I think
he hasn't looked like a superstar quarterback the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, but he's also run into a couple of fairly solid defenses as well.
Yeah, but good quarterbacks still mince up solid defenses, right? In 2021 anyway. They don't throw 3 interceptions.
He's looked a lot better, right? He's looked a lot better.
But the last couple of weeks, you got cause for concern. But that O-line's not good.
Yeah, but we've also seen Mahomes had 3 interception games this season as well. For me, Zach Wilson coming out, he had all the throws that we see Mahomes make. He's got those sidearm throws to get around defenders and all of that. And I can't give up on him yet. For me, he was the QB2, and I took him as the QB2 in most places. I think my first visit onto this pod, I even suggested that there could be an argument made for him over Trevor Lawrence, given that where Lawrence landed.
Look, I agree with you, Bully. I think he was for NFL teams, I think he was a clear QB2.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be panicking yet at all. I'd probably be buying, to be honest with you. I do think like there's this perception right now because the Jets are the Jets that the infrastructure isn't that much better than when, like everybody was talking, in the offseason, the infrastructure is good in the Jets now, and now they're saying that it's not. Right, but it's just due to injuries. And
the defense is still pretty good. They're still a sneaky good side.
Once
the rough sucks.
Once Becton's healthy again and Elijah Vera Tucker's healthy again, they keep building that O line. I think we'll see a different Wilson.
Elijah Moore might get on the field a little bit more. I'm still holding hope, but it's just that worry. It's just that voice in the back of my head that's sort of,
Yeah.
Fair enough. There's two guys who I was in on who I am now out on, and they're both San Francisco 49ers. And it's Brandon Ayuk and it's Trey Sermon. I mean, just last week I was saying, I'll still be buying Ayuk, but I'm just really worried. Like, I don't understand what's going on with him and Shanahan, and I'm starting to see parallels to that other – well, who was that other wide receiver they took in the second round?
Dante Pettis.
Dante Pettis.
Yeah, I'm starting to see some parallels there to that situation, and it's got me quite a bit spooked when it comes to Ayuk. So I'm really worried there. He was a reception perception darling last year. Would have had over 1,000 yards if he played all the games, and I don't understand why he's not getting the kind of opportunity that he's.
It's got to be an attitude. It's got to be an attitude application. It's got to be. That's the only thing I can think of. Like maybe he's just not putting in Shanahan's trying to send a message. I don't know if that's true. I haven't heard anything that followed any of the San Francisco beat writers, but that's all I can throw a dart as that. Maybe he's head somewhere where it shouldn't be, and if that's the case, maybe he can rock it back up.
He could, but I'm just worried. Look, I wouldn't be selling. But I'm not going out and buying him. I'm just going to hold what I have, and whatever happens. But it's definitely concerning. And Trey Sermon, I thought there was a chance he could if what has happened, if you told me Mostert was out the whole year, right? Going to be out the whole year at the start of the season, I would have been like buying Sermon everywhere.
Yeah.
I thought Sermon's going to have a monster year. And he looks like an afterthought, even with the injuries that they have. This is a guy taken in the third round. It's real draft capital for a running back, right? Third round draft capital.
Yeah. And it's not just Mostert was out. Jeff Wilson was out, and he carried the load down the stretch last year for him as well. Like, the two lead backs are out. Like, he had a clear path to being the man, but, it hasn't happened. And, I mean, I do think some of Ayuk last year was a little bit of a false narrative. When he was putting up yards, they had no one. Kittle was out. Debo was out. I think they had two or three other receivers that were out. Like, realistically, someone had to catch the ball. And he was out there, and he was the target hog. He looked like the superstar. So I do think some of it was a false narrative. But I think some of what we're seeing with Shanahan is a little bit of Sean Payton, in that they're known for being good with their quarterbacks. They're known for, upskilling their quarterbacks and working with them. But they've both got both got a streak in them where once you burn them, that's it. You're dead. Like Willie Snead had that DUI, and he was the 2IC down there behind Michael Thomas, and he had that DUI, got suspended for 2 games, and never saw the field again.
But Ayuk hasn't had anything like that. Either Sermon. None of those things have happened.
Nothing that we know of.
Nothing, but that stuff gets out now. If a player has a DUI,
No, but I'm not saying it might not have been criminal, but if you look at how Tomlin is different with his players and how he kept the craziness of AB and Lev Bell and all of that under wraps for so long in Pittsburgh, you know,
maybe he's turning up late, something you're saying, or maybe he's bad in the locker room.
He's turning up late. He's not
doing shortcuts.
He's not studying. I think we're seeing with Shanahan that if you're not on board, then no drama. Sit in the back of the bus and we won't talk to you. Like we're not going to cut you. We're not going to trade you. We're not going to do the right thing by you. You're going to sit back there, and eventually your contract will run out, and maybe New England will pay you vet minimum.
It almost feels like they're freezing him out of the offense.
Yeah,
it does.
Yeah, it just doesn't. I'm just confused. This guy's a guy who's obviously got a lot of talent, and then I mean, Sermon, like back 2 weeks ago, 19 carries. Then last week gets 1 carry.
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of the frustration of owning 49ers running backs, right? I mean, but you don't expect to go from 19 to 1, especially with the injuries they had.
Yeah.
Anyway. Well, look, those were the 3 big questions that 4 big questions I wanted to put out for you guys, and thank you both for answering those and giving your opinions there. Was there anything else you guys wanted to touch on quickly before we go?
I think good luck to the teams that are making the push, and for those that are getting ready to tank, like, go hard.
All right. Bye, everyone.
See you guys.
See you, boys.